Now, big moment tonight. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves standing up to make a speech in the swanky surroundings of Mansion House in the City of London. And she's apparently thinking of people in particular who are struggling to get on the property ladder. So the briefings on the speech suggest she's got plans to create up to 36,000 additional mortgages for first-time buyers in a single year. The changes she wants will include lowering the minimum salary needed for a mortgage to £30,000 from £35,000 for an individual and to £50,000 from £55,000 for a couple on a joint income. In addition, if you're renting somewhere and have a good track record of monthly payments, you'll be able to use that to prove to lenders how much you can afford to borrow, sometimes without the need for a deposit. So I'd love your reaction to that. Do you think, oh, thank goodness, I've been waiting for anything that's going to make it even slightly easier for me to own my home? The property market in this country is just so crazy. Or do you say, well, it's all very well, but in reality, all it means is more people could end up losing their homes. And when you put more money into purchasing, you end up with house prices going up even more. Love your thoughts. vine@bbc.co.uk is the email. Please include your phone number so we can call you back. You can text us 88291. And if you've got an Alexa smart speaker, just say, Alexa, ask BBC Sounds to send a comment to Jeremy, and it will do that. Matthew Lavender joins us, former Labour advisor who's positive about the announcements. And Sally Mitchell, mortgage broker from Essex. Sally, you're a bit more worried about this.
It's not a silver bullet, that's all I'll say.
So not a silver bullet in the sense that it will not just suddenly mean loads of people can buy a house?
No, there are still lots of obstacles. I mean, I welcome it. Anything that helps first-time buyers feel, in fact, that they've got a chance has got to be welcomed and applauded. But there is still the issue of deposits. There is still the issue of stock. So just because you can times your income by a higher multiple doesn't mean to say necessarily that you can gather all the money together to actually purchase. And bear in mind that the average house price across the UK is £271,000. So a £30,000 salary, even if you times it by 5.5 or 6, still leaves you somewhat short.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Matthew Lavender, what do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I totally understand. No, I totally understand the point that Sally's making, and I think that there is a concern with stock. I think one of the things that I know when Labour were in opposition, I remember working with the team there at the time, one of the things that they were hearing a lot was that people are struggling to access finance, and therefore there was I think the issue of deposits, as Sally raises, is a big one, but I think access to mortgages was a crucial point. And so I think anything that opens up that opportunity for people to get mortgages has got to be a good thing. But it does, as Sally points out, have to be combined with greater stock, because otherwise all you're going to do is push up demand and not match supply, and prices will go up. But I do think the government, with the planning and infrastructure bill and some of the changes they're trying to make to the planning system, at least is trying to move in the right direction on supply.
Matthew, is there any chance that a political party will come in and say, we are going to give you the biggest housing crash you've ever seen?
No, because a political party's
you
never
wouldn't
going to
get
say
elected
that.
on that.
No,
because you get votes from young people, because then they'd finally be able to afford a house.
But I think this has been a challenge for politicians for time immemorial, isn't it? Is that you say that house prices are going to rise, and some people are going to think that's great news, and some people are going to think, well, that's not very helpful for me, and the same is true in reverse. So I don't think anyone is ever going to argue that what we need to do is actively bring prices down, because they know that there is a big core of homeowners in the middle who are going to struggle with that. But I think even those homeowners would accept that there is a real challenge, because for many of those homeowners, they're looking at their children or their grandchildren and realising how hard it is to get on the housing ladder. And they know that while it's not the whole story, a big part of that puzzle is often accessing mortgage finance. And that's why I think, allowing young people who are renting and paying their rent on time for years, every month for years, to use that rent payment as an example of how they could, and evidence that they could afford a mortgage, has got to be a useful thing.
I was going to say, Sally, it gets us a bit closer, doesn't it, to have putting more money in the pockets of the young people?
Yeah, it does. And it's such a dream for most people to own their own property. It's something that's peculiarly British, I think. The Englishman's home is his castle, etc. And it's the biggest complaint I hear from customers, saying, it's not for me. I'm never going to be able to do it. I'm just never going to get my own place. So, as I say, anything that points them in the right direction, helps them, is a good thing. And actually, the innovation that has come out of the last couple of years, the track record mortgage that does look at rental records, etc., and paying on time, that's been amazing. Specific schemes with different lenders, like the Helping Hands one. They are amazing, and it's nice to see the mortgage industry or the financial industry actually becoming more innovative.
I don't know what the solution is, because what seems to happen, Matthew, is that if somebody owns a house it's worth 200,000, and then there's a prediction that it's going to be worth 300,000 in 5 years' time, they put it on the market for 270, and people buy it thinking, well, it's going to be worth 300 within a few years, and so effectively they'll pay for the increase in the value up front, and that's what shuts out the young people.
I think that what is shutting out young people, though, is a combination of all those things. I think that is absolutely something you identify. I mean, something that Sally mentioned earlier as well is deposits. Where are you going to get deposits from? Because even if you increase the percentage by which that you can sort of increase, you can borrow, if that's still leaving you £100,000 short, you're going to have to find that from somewhere. And for most people, that's bank of mum and dad. So I think there are a whole series of things. It's all for the same on the supply side. We need to access more housing supply. You can't just boost demand without supply. But there is not just one thing that is stopping us building enough homes. There's everything from the kind of cultural challenges of sort of NIMBYism all the way through to genuine structural problems in the market or financial problems that developers are facing. It's such a complicated market that there's no one silver bullet, and therefore I think incremental changes are good. They're not going to change everything overnight and suddenly make housing affordable for young people on average incomes.
Well, Clinton's big idea in the 90s was you got very low interest rates and you force lenders to lend on what were called self-cert mortgages, and we have them here as well, where people could simply say, yeah, I'm good for $250,000. They would get the money, they'd be able to pay the monthly sum, and that's what gave us the subprime crisis, isn't it, Sally?
That's absolutely right. And when you talk about that, I get the heebie-jeebies. We do not want to go back to that.
Well, what was our version? Because we were infected by American debt, but we also had a version of it ourselves, didn't we? And I guess that was mainly about people doing 120% mortgages here.
Yeah, it was very common. I remember those days. I had friends who took those mortgages out, and unfortunately some who then lost their properties and had a dreadful credit record afterwards as well. So we don't want to go back to those days. We can't. We won't. We now have so much financial regulation. Everything has changed so much since 2008. And we've got to just strike that balance between being sensible, recognising how people live their lives, earn their money these days. There's so many more entrepreneurs and self-employed people. Not hardly any, but far fewer back in the day. So we've got to move with the times and really start servicing those clients with their particular sort of blueprints.
Thank you both very much indeed. Sally Mitchell, mortgage broker from Essex, and Matthew Lavender, former Labour advisor, who's positive about these announcements. So we're just thinking about the Chancellor's speech tonight and basically making it easier for lower paid people to get a mortgage.